Kendall Rogers joins us right now from D1 Baseball and D1Baseball.com. Kendall, we started visiting back in January. Season started in the middle of February. It's been a wild roller coaster year, but we have made it to the final 8 with the College World Series field set to begin on Friday. What a season it's been.
It really has. I mean, if you look at the kind of the storylines of this College World Series, it's a lot of teams who have decided to play their best baseball over the last, month and a half, 2 months. I mean, you look at Oklahoma, who back in February and early March had a lot of question marks. You look at Texas, who's kind of been a little bit up and down. You look at, Arkansas and Ole Miss, 2 teams that, supremely talented, top 5 teams in the preseason. And they've kind of just, all of a sudden the last couple of weeks started playing really, really well. And so I think this is a field, Richard, when you look at the 8 teams that it's wide open. Like, typically you look at a World Series field and you're like, you know what, I feel pretty good about these guys, and I feel pretty good about these guys. But this year, I mean, I could literally see anyone in this field winning it.
Which side of the bracket's more difficult? Left side with Oklahoma, A&M, Notre Dame, and Texas, or the right side with Arkansas, Stanford, Ole Miss, and Auburn?
Pick your poison. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I think they're equal. I mean, if you look at the Arkansas Ole Miss side, you've got Arkansas and Ole Miss who are ridiculously hot. You've got Stanford, who's probably the most talented team, position wise of all these clubs. When you look at their lineup top to bottom, they were here last year. They're the number 2 national seed. On paper, they're quote unquote the favorite. But I mean, you've got 4 really, really hot teams. You look at the other side, you've got A&M and Oklahoma, who can't seem to lose. I mean, both those teams haven't lost a series since like the beginning of April. And then you've got Notre Dame, who, they're going to feel like they're King Kong out there because they just knocked out Tennessee. And so, I mean, I think they're pretty equal, to be honest with you.
What surprised you from Super Regional weekend?
Honestly, the surprising thing for me was just how, I guess easy is the wrong word to put it, but like how easy Ole Miss seemed to make it look over the weekend against Southern Miss. I mean, I just felt like when you watch those games, I didn't think at any point you were kind of like, oh, Southern Miss is about to blow this open, or, Ole Miss is in big trouble. I just thought from the get-go that Ole Miss looked like the better team, that Ole Miss felt like they were the team that in their head they thought they were going to win it. They look like the aggressor. They look like the more confident team. So I think it's going to surprise me a little bit because Southern Miss has been so good this year. But what I just kind of wonder is when you look at USM is, how much did that regional take out of them last week? I mean, that was a really long weekend for them. They had to scratch and claw, bring guys back on the mound to beat LSU. And I just kind of figured, felt like that weekend took a lot out of them. So for me, it's just how good Ole Miss looked and how locked in they were against Southern Miss.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Kendall. I talked with someone earlier who mentioned that, the regional with LSU at their place did take a lot out of not just the team, but the fans as well. I would push back on that a little bit because I think that fan base was sitting on pins and needles ready to explode this past weekend. But they got 7 hits over the course of 2 games and never scored a single run, which kind of makes it hard to really get going in the stands.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Grand Slam that wasn't, if it goes fair, maybe the series is a little different. But I just think when you look at the way that Ole Miss played, they look like a team of destiny. They look like a team that was expected to win that, whether it was the big hits offensively, the job that Hunter Elliott did. You and I talked about him last week, and boy, did he throw well. I mean, it honestly looked like I was watching Tony Casey out there. Just the way he was attacking, his persona, just the way he looked really in his mechanics. Like, it looked a lot like Doug. And, maybe they get that Grand Slam and turn that thing around. But, boy, I don't know. I still think Ole Miss probably wins the series even with that.
How impressed should we be with what Auburn did? They go to Corvallis, and their starter in Game 1 does not get out of the first inning, and yet they somehow managed to piece it together in the bullpen. They lose to Cooper Jerpy in Game 2, and then they come back and just have to fight and scratch and claw yesterday, and ultimately come from behind to win that Game 3, the deciding game in the Super Regional.
Yeah, I mean, Butch has done an amazing job with that team this year. I mean, you think about the last month of the season, They lose. I think it was right after the Arkansas series. They lost Hayden Mullins, or right before they lost Hayden Mullins for the year, who was their Friday night starter. And granted, they've had some moving pieces with their pitching staff, but to lose him and really not skip a beat, that is such an impressive coaching job. And so the thing I liked about Auburn is, their bullpen has been really good. They had one game over the weekend where Sonny D went off. They had another game where it wasn't so much a wholesale effort. It was basically just Sonny D and a couple other guys, but they just find different ways to win. And you know what? They're not the prettiest team in the country. They're not the team you're going to watch and go, wow, those guys are really good. But what they do is they just play well as a whole unit. And when you can do that and you've got some older players, you can win an elite level. With that said, they're the team I probably have the least confidence in this whole field. But that's not to say they can't win it. It'd be foolish for me to say they can't win it.
Have you heard anything about Sonny DeShera's health? I mean, get a little bit gimpy going around the bases, stayed in the game last night. Is there any concern there? Or do you think Auburn is good to go?
I think he's good to go. I tell you what, man, just looking at Sonny, hey, that track from first to third, that's a lot of work for the big man. So
he was lumbering.
A little winded. Yeah. Yeah, he's got a lot of baggage there to carry around. So he's probably just a little tired. Yeah, he was banged up. But, boy, I'll tell you what, knowing Sonny and having interviewed him before, I mean, that dude's going to have a broken leg to not play in Omaha.
There are a lot of people that are pointing to the fact that there are 4 SEC teams there, and 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it's what would be 6 SEC teams. I know you don't get to fast forward. When you look at the future of the SEC, we know that there's not another league in the country that has committed to college baseball the way the SEC does. What about with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas? It's like, how can it get harder? And then you look at it and you're like, I mean, I guess it's going to.
It really is. I mean, the thing about this league is it's really deep. It's really good at the top. But, I mean, the thing about Oklahoma and Texas, especially with Texas, I mean, Oklahoma is one of those teams that, like, even this year, they got to Omaha, but let's see if they can kind of string these together a little bit. Whereas, like, UT, it's kind of like, hey, this is kind of what they do, right? Like, they get to Omaha. And so, I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, not that this is that big of a deal, but I was sitting there like, what are they going to do with the conference tournament? Right now they take, 12 teams? I mean, what are you going to leave? I mean, if you have those two and leave teams at home, I mean, with that many clubs, you're going to be leaving some really good teams at home at the SEC tournament. So, does the tournament expand and then they go single elimination? That's going to be interesting. But, yeah, boy, the league is already great, and it's going to get even better with those two.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me they thought it was going to go to all 16 teams getting in, and then instead of 2, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out when it's all said and done. Dave Van Horn, he's got the reputation for kind of being the crusty old man, but the crusty old man knows he's got a paper map that he still carries, and he knows the route to Omaha. 7th time at Arkansas, 9th time in his career. I know he's missing a national championship, but it's just remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, he's done an amazing job. Obviously last year was disappointing, but, the fact that they played at such a high level over the weekend, it gives me a lot of confidence, those guys in Omaha. I mean, I thought Arkansas, they showed glimpses of it against Auburn earlier this year, but they kind of turned around, lost the series at Vanderbilt at home. They played lifeless in Hoover. I'll be honest with you, when I saw them in Hoover, I'm like, oh, boy, this is not good. But you know what? The one radio guy up there made a comment about some of their players. I don't know if they use that as, like, their rallying cry, but, boy, they played like, chicken with its head cut off in the regional, and they continued that level of play in the Super. I mean, North Carolina, I thought, played well. Vance Honeycutt made some big plays. But, I mean, Arkansas played phenomenal over the weekend, both offensively and on the mound.
2 high-profile jobs, or relatively high-profile jobs that are open in Clemson and Florida State. Where do those jobs end up now that – I mean, are they looking to one particular coach that is in Omaha? How does that play out?
Yeah, Florida State will be Leighton Jarrett, barring some insane surprise. I mean, Florida State would really, really have to screw something up not to get him. I think that's pretty obvious. He played there, was an assistant there. The Martin family loves him. He's a phenomenal coach. I don't know if you just watched their series over the weekend and saw some of his post-game interviews, but, man, you talk about a just smart, humble baseball guy. And you look at the job that he's done there. I mean, Notre Dame, people don't realize. I mean, Notre Dame during the COVID year was off to like a 17-2 start. They've won 40-plus games. They got in the Super the last 2 years. He would be a great hire for them. I think Clemson, that one's going to be Eric Bakich. It's a matter of, when, not if, with Bakich. And I really, really like that hire for them. If that's, if everything kind of, the T's are